So we have been counting and waiting, trust me. All right, good evening, everybody. I'd like to bring the Hudson Valley Regional EMS Council meeting to order. If we could start out by a Pledge of Allegiance. Moment silence afterward in recognition of EMS Week and those that we've lost. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Again, in recognition of EMS Week, I personally want to thank you guys, as well as the on behalf of Rich and Nick and the program agency staff for coming out and, more importantly, being who you are and doing what you do as far as being involved in EMS. It's been a tough couple of years. It seems that our appreciation has kind of swayed a little bit and faltered, but the only way that we're going to ever earn it back and get the recognition that we need is for you guys to keep doing exactly what you're doing. So again, thank you very much. Just so that we're aware, we're going to start this out a little different. As you can see, we have a stenographer here. We have a couple of actions that are going to require us to have the stenographer here right now. Unfortunately, Glenn isn't here. He's gotten held up. So what we're going to do is start rolling through the agenda, and then I'm going to jump right on into the new business to do the transfer of authorities actions, so that we can have the stenographer take the notes. And then once those are done, we're going to release her and let her go home to her family. And then we'll continue on with the rest of the agenda. All right, so I'd like to thank you for a few minutes. So Nick, if you don't mind, could you go through roll call, please, sir?
My pleasure. Dutchess County, Nicholas Trio present. Dave Violante.
Here.
Joan Siebert.
Here.
Tim Murphy.
Here.
Tim Gilnack. Orange County, Michael Bigg.
Here.
Rich Haley. Wayne Chen.
Here.
Chan, sorry. David Grass.
Present.
Israel Knobloch. Frank Castnight. Michael Witowski. Putnam County, Robert Cuomo. David Jacobson.
Here.
Faith Martin. Steve Wygant. Sarah Baker. Rockland County, Bernice Garotti. Nick Rusieski. Tim Egan.
Here.
Desiree Leone. Glenn Albin. Teresa Hamilton. Ephraim Tauber. BJ Leidner. Sullivan County, Albie Bachman.
Here.
Alex Rao.
Here.
Neil Meadow.
Here.
Heidi Stack. Mark Strauss. Sean Lewis. Ulster County, Richard Parrish.
Here.
Kelly Nelson.
Here.
Karen Pardine.
Here.
Matthew Goodnow. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I show 15 in attendance. We are a quorum.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone present that's either a delegate or an alternate that was not called on?
Owner Prentice.
We have a letter that we'll read into the minutes under old business.
Yes.
That has appointed Norm.
I went through the
Okay.
same thing when I got nominated.
Not a problem. And we also have Miss Nancy Pfeiffer from Orange County. And Nancy, your title is alternate, correct? Okay. Again, I'll give you the spelling and everything as we get into
Yes.
that portion of it, okay? But we made a quorum. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it, Nick. Looking for a motion for approval of the minutes from February 16th, 22. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to review them. They were sent out. Is there any corrections, omissions? Looking for a motion to accept. Got a motion from Wayne, seconded by Joan. Thank you very much. Vice President's report, Mr. Parrish.
All right. Participating in the Office of Hospital Emergency Preparedness meetings. They were supposed to have a surge exercise scheduled for April. That got canceled. When they get it rescheduled, I'll let you know what they are looking for EMS, but basically it's just, is EMS, are you available, and if so, how many? So you're not going to be rolling any vehicles for that. All right. I was working with Diaz with a all-day CME. That got canceled. We only had 3 people register for it. Same thing happened. There was a blast out for a pre-hospital trauma life support class, free for the first 15. That had to be canceled. We're not seeing people sign up for CMEs. And we believe maybe it's because of the 1-year extension that everybody's gotten, that they don't need them. All right. Met with Ryan Greenberg at the State EMS Council about the New Windsor update. And I'll get back to you next week. Give me a call. I gave him a call. I'm still waiting for a response back. So still trying to stay on top of that. All right. And that's pretty much what I've done. Any questions?
All right, very good. Thank you, Rich. On the President's report, it's been a busy couple of months as far as trying to get things moving along and keeping everybody focused and going through it. In working with some of the executive team, we were trying to figure out what can we do to get people motivated. So one of the things that I've elected to do, Rich has offered to go with me. Bill may very well go, we're not sure. But what I'll be doing is trying to visit each one of your local county councils. I know that you guys go back from these meetings and take all of the information and deliver it to them. What we're looking to do is really solidify and give you some backing. What can the region do? Because the problems that Sullivan County is experiencing are exact same problems that Putnam County is experiencing, and Dutchess has the same problems as Rockland and Orange. So our job, our focus, our responsibility here as an organization is to really bring those together. What are the opportunities? Could be anything from grant writing to, legislative changes, whatever it's going to take. So again, for me, it's going to be, how do we really, and I wanted to take it back to the local level so that, these voices that you're talking to maybe hear somebody different and realize, okay, it's not just the same thing that I'm hearing, every 2 months or every 3 months. This is a, universal problem that's across it. Because it's the only way it's going to get fixed. Or a year from now, 5 years, 10 years from now, as Joan and I were talking about earlier, it will be the exact same problems. So we need people involved. Alex summed it up pretty well before we got started in the meeting. If I could deliver, some extra ambulances and a whole lot of people, I would fix all the problems. And if I had that answer, trust me, I would have delivered those already. I just don't have them. So we're going to have to get creative and figure out where we're going to go. Because it doesn't matter whether it's the volunteer side, hybrid side, commercial, municipal, everybody has got the same problems. More work than they have staff to answer the calls for. So hopefully we can start to put that together. Otherwise, everything's pretty much been status quo at the regional level. Bill will come up to his report. We've had some stuff there. But for the most part, things have been going fairly smoothly. So, any questions for me? Hearing none, we'll default on to our treasurer, Mr. Chan.
Okay, treasurer's report. Last one was February 15th, 2022. Since then, we've written 41 checks for a total of $25,677.79. As usual, the top expenses were rent, health insurance. With another bid from Fisher Solutions for $750. One for VFIS insurance for $962. If wants to see the details, let me know. I'll show you the other checks that were written. Transfers were transferred on March 2nd of 2022, $30,000 to payroll, and then again transferred on May 2nd, 2022, another $30,000 to payroll. Deposits, we had a total of 5 deposits for $99,804.66. Our pending vouchers are third quarter March PA vouchers for $18,709.17 submitted on 4.5. We We have a third quarter voucher to RC for $1,573.62 submitted on 4/25/22. Competent education, there's no activity in that account. We have a total, all three of our accounts of $231,680.79.
Thank you very much. I need a motion to accept the treasurer's report. Tim Egan, seconded by Joan. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. We'll accept that. Regional staff report, Mr. Hughes.
Happy EMS Week, everybody. If you didn't know, this is the 47th National EMS Week. And well, as you can hear from the Treasurer's report, we're in pretty good position at this point. The two outstanding are just for the month of March. HVREMSCO, like I mentioned the last time, is we're not receiving any grant monies to distribute in naloxone, so it's still available, and you just have to come and pick it up or send somebody to pick it up from our office. We just recently ordered 360 doses of it, which is just it's about 2-3 months supply for us, and somehow they made a mistake and shipped us twice that. So we have 720 doses ready to go.
We'll use it.
There's 2 new policies that the Bureau of EMS has published since our last meeting. One is the viral pandemic triage protocol. It was an update from the one that we had during COVID. It's available on the website. And the second one was the second extension for EMS provider certification. If there's any questions on that or anything, you can ask, and we'll try to answer them for you.
Give the numbers on those.
Yes, 2204 and 2205.
Thank you, sir.
Our Transportation Committee had 2 TOAs they've been working on the whole time, and as Rich said, there's been no change on the New Windsor expansion of territory, and there's been no update on the New Falls Rescue Squad expansion or the Margaretville Hospital expansion. Those are I think at this point the paperwork has expired, and they'll probably have to resubmit all that paperwork. Not for the New Windsor. New Windsor was still waiting for the state. The region sent an approval into the Bureau for Empress Corps sponsorship. I have not heard whether that was issued or not as of yet, so I don't know if anybody knows that, but I know we had endorsed it with a little bit of a caveat. The SEMSCO's EMS tag, EMS in crisis, the subcommittees meet every week, and they're beginning to establish a white paper. Hopefully that will be done mid-summer. We're still working on several projects in the office. One is the iGel project. Hopefully David will have some update for us today on that one. The ALS upgrade paperwork is still in committee, and the RSI criteria is still in committee. Jeff will be talking to you about his dashboard, what we've been developing there, and about the quarterly report that we do. Our Bureau of EMS, we have contracts. The program agency in the region has contracts with the Bureau of EMS. And our contract currently expires on 6/30/22. And we've had a meeting about it. It looks like they're going to renew our HVREMSCO contract, which means that we will have very little change, but it will be a renewal on that state contract. And the program agency is going to be a little bit different. It looks like they're going to extend the current contract. It really is not going to change the money or anything that we do. It changes the amount of work that we have to do. New contracts we have to do a lot more work on. Extensions that we just roll over what we have, so it's a little bit easier. The program agency directors met on May 9th to review the contract and the attachment C part of it and the deliverable tool. Every quarter, the office has to submit a deliverable tool. It's about 180 pages where we have to respond to what we've done for the money in the contract. And it's the meetings that we have, the places we've traveled to, and the projects that we've worked on. So it really didn't match what the contract said. So the program agency took the contract and went line by line to make sure that the deliverable tool it meets the contract, then we submitted that to the Bureau of EMS. So we expect that on the next contract, that should be updated to really reflect the work that we do. The regional and state awards, the regional awards are due in the office here Friday. I know we have a few counties that have not submitted them, so if you're one of those counties, see if you can get your regional awards into us. After we make our decision on our side, on the region, then they will go to the state for the state awards. We had a REMAC advisory come out on the SLAMs and guidelines for that in education. All certified providers in the Hudson Valley, both BLS and ALS, should have completed the SLAMs training by now. And if you have members that haven't in your organization, the material is still available on our website. Please go up, get it finished. We haven't had a lot of usage on the SLAMs, so we're a little bit concerned about if everybody has taken the training. So we feel that we should, if you haven't taken it, you should take it. So. Very shortly, and I'm not sure when, but providers within an affiliated agency will be able to get electronic EMT cards from the HCS system. Now, the agency will get the people that work for them and are reporting to that agency will be able to do that. So you have to have, the agency has to have somebody that's an HCS person. So if you don't have an HCS or an agency doesn't have an HCS person, we can tell you how to do that and we can get you set up as that. But that person will be the one that will be getting the cards for the agency. All right? So the Bureau is going to teach us on what to do with that, so we'll be able to help you with it, but it'll be the responsibility of the agencies to do that. We have not seen that yet. We have not seen the training yet, but it should be coming in shortly. We had an RTAC meeting. It was on, and I'm going through that only because Dr. Pappas said that he will not be here today, so he asked me to give an update on some of this stuff, and that was the SLAMs and the RTAC, and had its first meeting this year, and Good Samaritan Hospital in Suffern was made a provincial level 3 trauma center on May 3rd, 2022. There's a new doctor, Dr. Matthew Bank, was named the chair of the STAC, which is the State Trauma Advisory Committee. Yeah, I figured what the AC was. Dr. Stu Miller was mentioned for all his work on getting blood in the field and how important that was and how many saves that has already.
What's the name of the new chair of STAC?
Dr. Bank, Matthew Bank.
Okay, thank you.
We spent a lot of time going through the trauma recertification for hospitals, which was kind of boring for us, but I'm sure the hospitals were anxious about it. They have a new book. They used to use an orange book, now they use a gray book. So I don't know what that actually means. But they did, at the end of the meeting, that we did talk about trauma and how it was on the rise in the Hudson Valley and the Westchester area. So anybody interested in that, they have been Zoom meetings. So if you're interested in, let me know. The next meeting should be 10/12/22. Will be the next STAC meeting, which is the state level, and the week following that will be the RTAC meeting, which is our local Hudson Valley meeting. EMS Memorial has been rescheduled from May. It's normally this week, but due to the amount of people on the memorial, they had to expand it. So the expansion wasn't completed for this. So they moved the actual EMS Memorial Service to September 20th at 11 o'clock on the Empire State Plaza. There's 10 people that will be honored that passed away due to the line of duty. 3 of them, 11 o'clock, yes. 3 of them are from the Hudson Valley. Desvara Pulse Check is October 6th through the 9th at the Crown Plaza in Albany. I have some meeting that I want to change, that we have to talk about changing the schedule on. I don't know if you want to do it here or you want to wait until...
Let's wait and do it under old business.
Okay.
What's the dates on that again? Sorry.
The October 6th through 9th is at the Crown Plaza in Albany. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Bill? All right, what I'd like to do, if there's no objections, is alter the agenda for a few minutes. Obviously, for the transfer of authorities, we have to have a stenographer present and recording. So what we're going to do is ask that Glenn give his report. Just prior to doing that, I do have to read a statement. As most of you are aware, looking at the agenda, we had 2 transfer of authorities.
Point of order.
Point of order?
Yep. Make a motion to suspend the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to suspend the agenda.
Second? Comments? All in favor? Thank you. So moved. Okay. We had 2 transfer of authority applications that were received by the regional office, and they were passed on to the Transportation Committee for review of completion and fitness and competency. I'm breaking the agenda because one of the transfer of authorities has been removed from consideration. And a quick statement. On May 17th, 22, the Hudson Valley Regional EMS Council received a letter via email from Mr. Albie Bachman, founder and chairman of the Board of Mobile Medic EMS. The letter dated May 16th, 2022 stated that Mr. Bachman was rescinding approval and consent of their operating certificate for transfer. Mr. Bachman further stated that he wanted the application removed from the agenda of the Hudson Valley REMSCO for this evening, May 18, 2022. We consulted our attorneys, Mr. Joseph Owen and Deputy Director Desura from the state. They confirmed and recommended that the transfer of authority application and the fitness for competency be removed from this evening's agenda. As such, we will not be bringing it forward, and we will not be voting on the fitness and competency for that transfer of authority. All right, if you have any questions, be happy to answer it, but it's very limited on what I can say to you other than the facts that I read into the record. Hearing none, Glenn, if you don't mind, if you could present the Transportation Committee's report on the Sylvan Alba American Legion to Highland Ambulance Service fitness and competency review.
Okay, we met via Zoom and looked at the application from the American Legion to the town of Highland.
Highland Ambulance Service.
Yeah, Highland Ambulance Service. We looked at it, it was deemed complete. The state did the fitness and competency and found that it was complete. So we are going to, under new business, I think, have it's a second motion that we'll vote, as the council will vote on, to allow for the transfer of ownership. That's essentially it.
Okay.
We met and found it, they dotted their i's and they crossed their t's.
All right, so you're presenting, and we're going to do that now, sir. So you're presenting a seconded motion for...
Second motion for the transfer of ownership from Empire, say it again, Empire...
No,
It's from Sylvan Alba American Legion
Sylvan Alba
to
American-
Highland Ambulance Service.
Highland Ambulance Service.
Correct. Any questions on the transfer of authority? Fitness and competency. Because again, I'd like to remind the council members that what our role and responsibility as defined by 0606 is not the application between the 2 entities, but the verification that the receiving entity of the CON is fit and competent to run that service. Again, we consult with the state, received state verification, so we're going to look for a roll call vote on approving or disapproving that transfer of fitness and competency as per the application request.
Very good.
Thank you.
Nicholas Trio, yes?
Just for clarification, yes, you approve, thank you, yes, you approve the fitness and competency as recommended by the Transportation Committee. No, you do not approve the fitness and competency for this transfer. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. Dave Violante?
Yes.
Joan Siebert?
Yes. Tim Murphy,
Yes.
Michael Bigg,
Yes.
Wayne Chan,
Yes.
David Grass,
Yes.
David Jacobson,
Yes.
Tim Egan,
Yes.
let's see, Avi Bachman,
Yes.
Alex Rao,
Yes.
Neil Meadow,
Yes.
Richard Parrish,
Yes.
Kelly Nelson, Karen Pardine.
Yes.
Were there any present that I did not call of the representatives?
Nick?
Glenn, I'm sorry, Glenn, where?
Yes, well, obviously.
Oh, that's because you came in, okay, right,
Yeah,
that-
late, sorry.
that's fine, and you're a yes, right? Okay. So we have 16 yes, 0 no.
Very good. The fitness and company passes. We will sign the application, have it into the state by tomorrow morning. So we will sign that before it's going on. Is there anything other business where we need a stenographer? Hearing none, thank you very much for your services. Okay?
A motion to go back on the agenda?
Second.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Hearing none, we're back on the agenda. All right, let's pick up where we left off. Mr. Crutcher, Q&A, please.
Yes, continuing work with vendors and a couple of agencies that are still having some submission issues. I think we're finally seeing some light at the end of the tunnel that isn't an oncoming train with that. So hopefully we can get that cleared up. Hopefully by the end of the year, before we start working on Nemesis 3.5. 3.5 is not going to be as significant as a change as it was coming from 2.0 to 3.4. We're going to see some more mandatory fields. We're going to see some of the bugs in 3.4 cleared up. Towards that end, last month, we had a 2-day work session in the Finger Lakes to write the New York State Data Dictionary, which is the supplemental dictionary to everything Nemesis, which also includes a lot of our own regional rules that have been more or less adopted and sent up to the state. We still have a little bit of work left on that, but we should see that document complete hopefully by the end of the third quarter. And that takes care of 3.4 data as well as the impending 3.5 changes. So we looked at a lot of the rules to see what needed to be fixed, what needed to be changed, so that when an agency administrator goes in to take a look at a rule that isn't working, the language has been cleared up, clarified, and in some cases totally rewritten. So a fair amount of work has gone into that to hopefully make things a little bit easier. We have gotten several requests from agencies for data. We have produced those, sent them off to the agencies. We had a more substantial data request from Nuvance. Vassar is going to be having an EMS fellowship for physicians. And one of the pieces that needed to be produced was a year's worth of data that is region-wide for, I think, 8 specific points. That was about a 60-hour project to get that taken care of for them. Faison was very clear that this was a one-time request only, which I was fairly thankful for because that was just a fair amount of work to produce. One of the side benefits of that is I now have an entire series of reports that can be kind of filtered down for an individual agency, which is going to be helpful later on down the road. Nick and I had talked a couple of months ago on agency data and their request. Started working on forms so that an agency can simply send me a request for data. We have had requests for send me all the data from my agency. That's fine, but be advised you're getting an Excel spreadsheet with 500,000 data points. What are you going to do with them? So sometimes I think agencies don't quite grasp how much data we do have available. And it doesn't make sense to just send one big spreadsheet that you're going to have to further filter. If you want Narcan data, we can do that. We already do that for essentially the state. All we need to do is make it agency specific. And the way I have the reports written, I can break it out for one agency. I can break out trauma, I can break out cardiac arrests, and quite frankly, I like looking at New Windsor's cardiac arrest data because it is freaking phenomenal. Their ROS rate is just absolutely spectacular. And kudos to Mike and his group because they do consistently good work. And if I have a PCR to review, and if it's coming from New Windsor, I typically have to pull up a medical dictionary to read some of it. Because their narratives are just extraordinarily well detailed. To the point where you almost don't have to read it if it's a New Windsor PCR. Frankly, other agencies, not so much with the narratives. The narratives, even in the ePCR realm, are extraordinarily important. You will, at some point in time as an agency, have a PCR subpoena. And if that narrative is filled with misspellings of common words, if there are grammatical errors, that does not bode well for the provider or for the agency. There's spell check available. You really need to get your providers to start using the simple tools. The rest of the document is usually okay, except for if you're going through a medication checklist, make sure the right medication is checked. Cardiac arrest is a good example. Occasionally I will see Epi 1 to 1,000 instead of Epi 1 to 10,000. Make sure that you're taking some time when you're going through that list to check the right box.
It could be that they made one to 10,000, one to 1,000.
Exactly. But there are a lot of little things within that document that are going to be important, not just for the data gathering and dissemination of data, but for your own providers. What we're looking at more closely is what types of calls are out there. So if we have an abundance of a particular type of call, perhaps we don't need 14 CMEs on those. Maybe we need to look at what we're not doing often and create the CMEs out of that. So the data is being used, and I have now 2.5 years worth of 3.4 data, which is absolutely phenomenal because we can go back and we can look at trends. We can go back and we can call out the COVID-19 related calls. There's a lot of comparison and contrasting that we can do just within the region. I know that New York State is moving towards using biospatial to pull out essentially the same type of dashboard that we've already been using. So we can do a state comparison, a regional comparison, and an agency comparison. There's a lot that we can do with this. And if people have ideas of what they want to see, shoot me an email. I have the data. What do you want to do with it? Data belongs to the agencies. Questions?
Again, before I move on, just, it's nice to have a nice new car in the driveway, but if you don't learn how to drive it, there's no sense having the car in the driveway. It's a lot of data, a lot of information, could be useful to, several agencies that don't have the, resources or assets to be able to pull some of that data. So, thank you, Jeff.
Jeff?
Oh.
Good.
Yes.
This is Jeff. Our New Windsor's our QA for our ROS and stuff. We are part of the errors in AJ. We're only one so far that registered in this region with the AJ.
Yep.
One of our board members is the vice president of AJ. Really focusing on ROS and so survival. So I would suggest any agency wants to get involved with the CARES Registry, American Heart Association. That helps you write their ECRs. The person, Shannon, who does our inputting the data, make sure the medics are writing what has to be done so that we can input the data to get Ross to take that. Goes on the day report. We have a 23% walk out the door survival rate of cardiac arrest in the year, which is really high, and we're 52% ROS rate or something. So it really has some really good metrics that help you providers learn about patient care and how we do dynamics on calls. And we set up where the first med, that does an airway, this one does that, everyone has their own role before they walk in the door, and that's really worked out well for us, for the cities.
Outstanding.
Jeff, how many actual data points are there per?
On an average PCR,
Yeah.
if we're looking at an average BLS PCR, there's approximately 185 data points. If you're looking at ALS PCR, up to 350.
So again, a reason why people need to learn how to select what they really want.
As an aside, for the report that I did for Vassar, it encompassed over 6 million data points before I had it all distilled down to the 8 that they wanted. It's a lot of data.
Excellent. Again, for everybody in the room, just to kind of give a shout out to New Windsor, if you're interested in, getting involved with it, it sounds like Michael and his team's put together a, pretty phenomenal process. Maybe you can hijack some of the processes and protocols that he has to implement into your agency, that you're not reinventing the wheel. So I'm sure he'll be happy to share it. I hope I didn't go out on a limb there, Mike, but, again, he's having great results, so if we can mimic that, good for him. All right, so great, nice job. All right, I guess we're off to committee, so we'll start with our training committee. Mr. Violante.
Great, thank you. So this is just training related to the region?
Yes, sir.
At this point. The CLI classes are going to be online, so those will be held at the state level. The CICs are going to do an AMC now, so that's not, those two things you're probably not going to see in the region anymore.
True.
Through an AMC.
Oh, right, got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
CIUs are also going to be online. We're still looking at doing CIUs here, probably not as much as we have done in the past. The state has come out to say that training centers really don't have borders within the state anymore, and so training centers around the state are training centers around the state, not just in different counties or regions. So that a whole bunch of discussion and confounding stories by members at the CMAX HVREMSCO as to what that meant and what we're supposed to do, because we're supposed to have a regional plan. Bill does put that together. We sent it to the state. And what it looks like is funding may be based on that regional plan, and of course sponsors actually apply for it in their areas. So now not having regional borders, that sort of changes the plan quite a bit. So we're unpacking all of that. We have no idea what it will mean, what that is out there. So you may see different training centers around the state. Most everything is now online or electronic. We're submitting items to the state and getting them back. Bill talked a little bit about the cards, digital cards that are coming down the line. And Ryan talked about that at the last CMAX as well. And we talked about the efforts for sponsorship. I briefly texted with Darren, and they don't have an answer from the state yet on where that stands. So that's where the training committee at this point. Unless you have any questions for me.
Hearing nothing?
You said the COI is on the website.
We're good at Vital Signs Academy. Yes, they did not say when. We've been saying that for a little bit of time now. But they haven't had a lot of folks up there. Ryan did seem to indicate they now have a lot more staffing, and so that's helpful. Normal pieces.
And correct me if I'm wrong, David, along with having the CLI program online, I believe they said they recorded the instructor updates from Saratoga and Buffalo, and they're also going to put those online. So for those of you that are struggling to find instructor CIU hours, you're going to be able to go up right to the website. I don't know if there's going to be a fee associated with those, because they really haven't said that yet,
Right.
you know, but they did say that the instructor CIUs would be up there as well.
Right.
So that'll be interesting. Any questions for David? Very good. Hearing none. Mr. Albin, do you have anything else from the Transportation Committee you'd like to share with us, sir?
Not that I can think of, I mean, other than, you know, if anything comes down the pike, we'll be beaten and greeting.
Happy to serve, right? Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, for the REMAC component, I know our medical director is not here, and Bill gave most of that before.
Yes, sir.
About the S-LANs rollout. If you're having issues where the hospital staff have no idea what you talk about when you say you have an S-LAN store, please let the regional office know so that we can help with some education and training of those locations. And if you're having any medication issues where you can't get medications for some reason, remember that part of that process is notifying the region then notifies the state, so that if you have the ability to use an alternative medication, you can. We try to figure out an actual flow sheet of if you don't have this medication, you can use this other one, and it was disastrous. So it just didn't work out. But there are some other alternatives that are out there for a variety of things. Make sure you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else on that? All right. Again, I'm going to beat another drum. As you notice in the agenda, that in both the Public Information and Policy and Procedure Committees, we are looking for chairs. I'd also like to remind those of you that are diligent to come out, again, thanking you, but remind you that, you know, we passed a change in our bylaws that required every delegate and every alternate to be part of a committee. Some of these committees do a little more work than others, but I'll have to be honest with you, unless you want the president position, we're talking about a couple of hours every couple of months. Most of the committees meet virtually. The office has the ability to be able to set that up for you, so it's not like you have to travel or go crazy. But the only way that this program works and the way the system works is for us to get involved. So unless you want to have an awkward conversation, and I'm going to start having those awkward conversations really soon, of, hey, I don't see your name on a committee, really need you to be on one, please volunteer. You are some of the most talented people that we have in the entire valley, and we really could use you in these committee positions. So please help us out. So does anybody have anything on public information, policy and procedure, or are there any volunteers to chair those committees? We can get job descriptions for those. And to be honest with you, in most cases, we will be happy when you write the job description. So it's one of those self-serving jobs, Michael, where you could literally write your own job description. And I will, if you leave it to me, I'm going to give you a lot of responsibilities that I'm supposed to do. So that's just the way, you know, passing the buck is. But again, for our Public Information and Education Committee, it's not a lot of work. What we like, or what we hope to see out of that committee or individual that's chairing it, is we have a great web page, we have social media presence here from the region, and we don't put anything out on it. So if we could take some of this new information and put it out there, a lot of times, you know, these are social media gurus that can really just move information from one location to another. As far as the Policies and Procedures Committee, that really falls under, you know, what it is we do. The last time that we saw those policies and procedures and stuff coming on, Mr. Bachman was instrumental in getting some of the changes pushed through to our bylaws to kind of strong-handedly get people to help with committees. That wasn't easy. Right? It was a whole lot of pushing and twisting and begging and asking people to get involved. That's what we're looking for. Again, it was one of the impetuses behind me wanting to come out to the local councils to see if we could drum up responses, because it seems like we have the same individuals that are doing about 90% of the work. And before we completely burn them out and they throw their hands up in the air and walk away, I'd really like to find, some really talented people to help spread the wealth and carry the load. So it's kind of what we're looking for. So I'll default over to legislative and bylaws and Mr. Bachman.
Good to see everybody in person.
Good to see you, sir.
Thank you very much. There's nothing I have to report as far as the bylaws are concerned. We seem to be okay with any additions or deletions, but as your chairman just said, we're still looking for people to fulfill that necessary requirement and being responsible and accountable for the positions that you hold. So I would like to see, before we leave today, those 2 positions being filled. We worked hard to get those bylaws instituted, and it would be nice if everyone was just responsible in doing that. I just have 2 things that I'd like to mention to you. I don't have to talk about any of the state EMAC stuff. You get the emails on that, and so I don't have to talk about that. But just 2 things that I found interesting. They're both very recent, as of March, and it's related to the new energy that our state has on trying to improve emergency medical services in the state of New York. It's slow, but there are things going on. As you know, our illustrious governor presented herself and talked about emergency medical services in her State of the Union address. Is that what they call it?
State of the State.
State of the State address. And literally spoke about emergency medical services and the deficits that we have and some things that she would like to see take place. The one thing I found, it's quite interesting too. It's a Senate bill that relates to us, and let's see if I can just summarize it a tad bit. It talks about establishing special districts, multiple districts, whether it be village, town, city, state, and we can do it jointly, and to form this district to address financing and operation of general ambulance services. And is doing it in a joint basis, not necessarily a town alone, a village alone, but they can do it jointly in contractual nature with everybody, but for the purpose of financing of EMS. Now, it doesn't address anything for commercial services, it does talk about non-for-profit. The bill is quite extensive, and they added quite a bit of these things. It goes to the general municipal law. Actually, it addresses several of them. General municipal law, the civil service law, retirement and social security law, and public health law. The idea is the volunteers, there must be active volunteers that can now receive benefits such as medical and social security benefits. There must be an active volunteer. Will they come to fruition?
Albie, what's the Senate bill number?
The bill number is S as in Senate, 8432A.
Is the Meyer bill?
That is the Meyer bill.
That has a companion bill in the Assembly, too.
Could very well be. Let me see if it's even listed.
Which is a relatively new development, and that's very
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah, let me see if they mention that too. I just have it out of the Senate. I'll just, I'll go on to the Assembly page and see what they say. Interesting.
It's mirror.
Yeah, M-A-Y-E-R.
No, I'm saying it's a mirror image of the Senate.
Oh.
In the Assembly.
Mirror.
Mirror.
Because
The
it's,
Meyer bill.
the Meyer
has a
bill is mirror. The
The
Assembly.
Assembly, yeah.
We're on the same page.
That was it.
All right, here's the other one. In her illustrious State of the State address, they have in existence something known as CHIPS, Consolidated Local Street and Highway Improvement Program. And it was established in 1981. And that is to address the maintenance of our roadways.
Which are crap.
Which is, yeah, roads are just great.
I'm surprised you give them that good of a rating.
Like when third world country I'm riding the bus.
So they are looking to mirror, if I can use that term from you, they're looking to mirror that program and put it to emergency medical services for helping us grow. And they came up with some statewide treatment protocols that she spoke about in her address. It's no different than we already have right now, as is. Statewide treatment protocols, we have that. Statewide EMS response system, we got that. Attracting new generation of EMT providers, we looked at that. And updating the definition of emergency medical services. Basically looking to make us an essential service. This was addressed and it was put into new legislation by Kells and Hinchy to address the shortages in rural EMS centers. Whether things come out of it, who knows? They're recognizing us, even through the Association of Counties. These two representatives went before the association and spoke about the need to help emergency medical services. And part of that is to come up with a financing program to give municipalities, and it'll be matched by the local town. So the aid will come from the state that will assist villages and towns and counties to provide these type of benefits to volunteer services. We'll just watch it. I watch it. We'll see what happens. I don't have too much faith in it because this is an election year, so no one's really doing anything and passing anything. And we'll see what happens.
Albie, are there any bills associated with that? Currently, bill numbers? Thank you.
Yes, assembly one in Kellis. It's A9164. 9164, and it's also in the Senate of S8189A. 8189A.
Thank you, sir.
Which addresses the crisis. They call it a crisis.
In Orange County, we took a lot of centers change around now also. So you have kind of new centers are going to be basically away. We have
New redistricting map.
we have our districts down in Orange County. We spoke with the Association of Towns in Orange County, we met, and they were discussing EMS in Orange County. The towns are starting to pick up on this problem now, and they're realizing that you're going to start paying for these services. You can't just expect volunteers and commercial services to do nothing. We had a lot of meetings with local towns recently about they thought it's expensive to have our service. The average taxpayer pays $42 a year. I mean, it's not a lot of money. So it's not like we're asking for millions and millions of dollars. So have this conversation with municipalities and we'll show our budget. It's nothing crazy, but it's enough to get us by and let us have 3 bags on a shift and pay them every week. So just try to push those these towns and get them out there to realize it's not, we're not asking for millions of dollars for the fire services. That's no offense, Marshall. We're just trying to get something there to be paid for the money.
That's what these two things are all about. Trying to find innovative ways.
The Meyer bill is really, it really has a lot of the Part F language under the governor's budget proposal.
Correct me if I'm wrong, did they pass a bill to allow fire districts to build?
They did.
Yes.
9B was finally,
The departments, companies, and agencies.
General Municipal Law 209B, it allows fire districts and municipal departments to have them.
Yeah.
Those that are in existence now.
Right, correct, I was gonna say.
There's a 4-year moratorium for anyone that wants to do it.
Right.
But keep in mind, as positive as you may think it sounds, it's going to take away the right for us to bill fire-related district patients doing ALS assists. So these senior citizens are now going to get bills.
That's how you roll though, right?
Say again?
That's for ultra roll though, right? We're not getting paid.
Well, that's there's two components of that. What you're talking about is the Medicare component.
Okay.
The ability to bill Medicare, the ability for ALSFR to bill Medicare for that assist. What Albie's talking about is the fact that seniors...
Non-transporting
there's no
agency.
agreement with the transporting agency and the ALS responders
That piece of that, that these seniors would get.
Well, it does away with the ability, see, New York State is the only state in the union
Was.
that Medicare allowed for us to do that. With this new passage, that goes away.
But that's the rural part.
Just the rule.
So the Meyer bill, getting back to the other one, it comes out of Westchester, and that was the result of a council that was created by the Westchester legislature to look at the EMS issues. And then they created this council, and then Meyer picked up on it and crafted this bill, model after. But the scary part is, though, that there is a sister bill, a companion bill in the Assembly in this community.
Why is it scary?
Because now it has a decent chance of passing, and EMS as a whole was lobbying it again. The only thing that EMS, generally speaking, there was you there essentially also, generally speaking, was in agreement with was the definition change for EMS. Other than that, nobody really liked any of the stuff that was in that bill. And all of that language is back in
In the budget, you mean? The language in the budget.
The budget language,
Yeah.
part of that budget language is
The
now
Meyer bill.
in the Meyer bill,
Correct.
which is
What problem are they trying to solve with this bill?
all of it. But,
It doesn't work. I mean, I don't know if that, I'll read more on it, but.
well, it's, I think, more than we should probably spend time talking about here. You should definitely read it.
Yeah, I would encourage you guys to have a conversation offline. Again, we don't want to keep everybody here. You know, again, without interjecting too much, you know, we joked around it about a little bit, and Glenn come up with it. If it's not managed well, it'll be just like the roads that we're driving on. There's a lot of funding that goes out for roads, and we know the condition of it. If we don't manage it well, it's money being spent and not getting a product for it.
I can't get a seal.
Well, with the second issue, you know, what I can say from a local government perspective is that the CHIPS funding is very helpful to local government to fix local roads. I'm talking about state roads, I'm talking about local roads. So if something like that happened for EMS, that's a source of revenue to start.
Mirror that CHIPS program.
Yeah.
The big issue,
Program
just
must be
really,
successful.
really quickly to end it, the big issue why the EMS people versus fire people in this talking heads is that we're screaming to get Medicaid rates increased. We haven't seen Medicaid rates increase in 25 years.
Well, that's not true, we just got 1%.
That's great, I can buy chickens.
It was unfortunately 12% below what the cost to deliver the product was.
So now you can see hundreds of millions of dollars going now from Medicaid to the fire, taking away, hopefully, those raises that we were looking to do. So how, do we see raises? Do we see raises in Medicaid?
There is some of that benefit there.
Some of them. We don't know what, how much.
$100 million a year, but even that, I don't think
That's,
is true.
no, it's
The
not.
latest estimate is something like 18 to 20 million, I think.
Maybe, yeah.
And that's a
This is
big
an
difference.
onerous.
That's a big chunk to
It's an
take.
onerous.
Bottom line is, nobody really knows.
All right, I'm going to call it back to order. These are great conversations that we can have off record, and I would encourage them because, again, there are both sides to every story, and the only way that we meet in the middle is to have good, honest debates. See each other's sides and figure out how to come in the middle. So I will encourage this afterwards, but in the light of the meeting, I got to kind of bring it back into play. So we're going to kind of move over to Mr. Egan. You have anything on the community paramedicine side?
I do. Something interesting came up at the HVREMSCO Legislative Committee meeting with the Director of Community Paramedicine. And it was a statement by Ryan Greenberg that basically he said that most, if not all, of the community paramedics programs that are currently in existence in the state, of which I think you said there were like 41 or 50-something. I don't remember the number. you
Well,
said.
52, but
Would go away once the executive orders went away.
correct.
Now, the only ones that I'm aware of in our region are ours and Empress's that predate the executive orders. I don't know if there are any others in any of the other towns. I don't think so. So those would obviously not be affected by the dissolution of the EPOs or the non-rules of the EPOs. But anywhere else in the state, there's going to be a lot of CP programs that are going to go on as a result of that, once that happens, which it will happen eventually. I just thought that was interesting. Ryan made that point in the legislative.
To expand on Tim's point, you know, if you have the opportunity, I would encourage you to, every month, and then sometimes bi-monthly, there's an agency leadership webinar that the state puts on If you're not involved with it, just reach out to Karen or Bill in the office. They'll get you the links. Once you register for it, the next one that comes around, they automatically send it to you. But there's a lot of information that comes out there to that. We have been enjoying a whole lot of luxuries for nearly 2 years working under the executive orders umbrella. And while you can have your philosophical differences when it comes to too much power is a bad thing, in this case for EMS, it is giving us some things that we've really wanted and needed without having to go to legislative changes. These 2 extensions that were pushed out for certifications, whether you think that they were necessary or not is irrelevant. It helped some providers. It kept them in the system and able to do it. That could only have been done under these executive orders. So
I'm certified for 69.
Could be longer if they push it out longer. But we've enjoyed some luxuries. We've gotten around some things that are legislatively bound that are good for us. The problem is too long and unfettered executive power leads to sometimes chaos and abuse. So, we have to take the good with the bad and then move on from there. So, any questions or comments for Tim? All right, thank you, Mr. Egan. Desiree's not here tonight, so I don't believe we have any awards. I think it's been pretty clear. Please go back to your councils, get the awards pushed up to them so that we can get them into the regional level, get them out to Desiree and her team, and get them coming through. So. We are up to the nominations council for Mr. Cuomo. Unfortunately, I believe he was under the weather and couldn't make it tonight. Bill, do you have his report?
I think
I have it.
Jones.
Oh, Joan has it. I'm sorry. So, what's your report?
Okay, for the following, President Dave Gross, Vice President Richard Parrish, Secretary Israel Navlak, and Treasurer Wayne Chan.
Okay, very good. When we get to new business, we'll go into elections. If there's anyone that would like to be nominated or you want to nominate someone, we'll take it then. But you've got a few minutes to kind of think about that as far as going through. Any questions for the nomination committee? Hearing none, we'll move on to Mr. Violante. Is there anything you want to add for the State Council?
Sir? I sent out a meeting minutes from Nicevara, friends at Nicevara for HVREMSCO. To everybody, if you did not get that, please reach out to Bill or Karen so they can get you on the list and make sure you do receive those. There's just a few things that I want to cover in here. Again, thanks to our friends at Nicevara for putting this together. It's been super helpful and it really covers what happens at the meetings. We talked quite a bit about Part F. And what that brought and what that did not bring. Talk about that as we get into the legislative piece really quickly as well. The workforce survey was done by Steve Kroll. That's out to distribution to agencies around the state, program agencies, CMAC and some members. So please fill it out. It really gives them a really good understanding of where the workforce is, what the workforce needs, and where we can move from there in terms of legislation as well. There's a new funding opportunity through NAMT with NHTSA. Section 402 Highway Safety Plan Grants has been had a 50% funding increase as long as you create a direct link between EMS interventions that impact auto crash outcomes. There's the possibility of doing that. Are you familiar with any more about that? Okay. And so that's something to look at through NAMT and NHTSA local. For old business, we talked about the memorial. Our own Brenda Taylor has been working a lot on the CISM tag, and I think, Wayne, you're going to talk about that, right? Okay, great. We ended up connecting her with Carl Gandolfo from down in the city. He's working on something very similar down there, so we're trying to get people together. And that tag has done a tremendous amount of work so far, so thank you for all the work you guys are doing with that. It's fantastic. The REMAC and HVREMSCO did approve the pediatric viral pandemic triage protocol and the adult pandemic triage protocol. They removed COVID-19 from it so they could just be used as some kind of a viral protocol versus a specific COVID-19 protocol. That will be coming out. They did approve the iGel project That'll be a statewide program that has to go through a final approval with the commissioner, and we have everything in place to roll that out. As soon as that is rolled out, there'll be training education you have to sign up for at the regional level first. The region then will send it, whatever local region you're in, will then send it to this region for approval. We will then include those folks into the study. It's worked out pretty well so far. Everyone seems really happy with it. CMAX MSCO members were just happy with this project, and so that'll allow for BLS providers to use an iGel supraglottic airway device in cardiac arrest scenarios. And so more to come out on that when it does come out. The state is looking for a state EMS medical director, which will help to liaise to the commissioner. There's a lot of staffing additions at the Bureau of EMS. Let me see, the education branch briefing calls for course administrators and instructors are on the third Wednesday of every month. If you'd like to get onto those, again, reach out to Bill and Karen, they'll get you the information for that. EMS for Children's working on protocol development. If you're interested in becoming a tech, we've talked about that before, please get in touch with Amy Eisenhower at the state. This year's Vital Signs Conference will be October 27th through the 30th in Albany at the Empire State Plaza. So that's October 27th through 30th in Albany. We talked about the memorial, executive orders with continuing and 30-day extensions. We talked about digital cards. The EMS Sustainability Tag is doing a phenomenal amount of work. Mike Beninati from LaGrange is chairing that committee, and there's several subcommittees that are just doing an amazing amount of work there. You all have probably seen the email go out about taking the EMS survey. If you haven't done it, please do it. If you haven't seen the email, look in your email. We've sent it out 8 ways from Sunday and probably more. There's a lot of good questions in there. We so far have somewhere around, I think it's 600 responses, which is just absolutely amazing. So it's great. So it's a lot of data. We're going to take that back to all the different committees and just reply out to what that means once we crunch the data that way. Dana Jonas, everybody that remembers Dana Jonas, is now retired. So if you're going to call the state and want to talk with him, you will no longer have a 2-hour conversation. Somebody different. Dr. Daly talked about some collaborative protocol updates. There's just some edits completed here and there. They are reinstituting the process whereby folks can send recommendations for protocol updates, changes, etc. A group of physicians will look at it, bring it back to the statewide protocol committee, and roll that out through CMAC. Mike McAvoy in education and training talked about the BLS PSE, which is going to be worked on, hopefully be implemented for classes in the fall. They just talked about that on today's education and training conference call, as well as the CIC, CLI, and CIU components.
Dave?
Yes, sir.
What does PLE, what's that?
Practical skills.
Practical skills
Oh, right.
for PLS providers. But
Right.
updating them, this is one of the updates we've been waiting for.
Thank you.
Okay, we talked about core sponsorships. Legislative, I would like to echo my